Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about something huge, something that's been brewing for over 2 years and finally has taken a major turn. The ceasefire in Gaza. Yeah, after months of intense fighting, heavy destruction, and heartbreaking loss, there's finally a pause in the violence. But before we start celebrating, let's be real, it's complicated. So let me walk you through everything, from what's happening on the ground to the political maneuvering, to what this might or might not mean for lasting peace. So, on Friday, Israeli forces began a partial withdrawal from Gaza. This isn't a full pullout yet, but it's a sign that for now, the guns have quieted. Hostages are expected to be returned to Israel soon, and thousands of Palestinians are returning to what's left of their homes. Here's the reality. The destruction is catastrophic. About 80% of buildings in Gaza have been destroyed. Tens of thousands of people have lost their lives. Many areas are facing famine. Streets are rubble, homes are flattened, and families are moving through this devastation, trying to pick up the pieces. Some people are sleeping under what's left of their homes. Others are setting up tents or makeshift shelters next to destroyed buildings. The human suffering is unimaginable. Families are desperate for anything: tents, prefabricated housing, basic supplies. In some cases, the single tent can cost €1,000, way out of reach for ordinary families. And this is just the start. Even after the ceasefire, there's a massive need for humanitarian aid and rebuilding. The ceasefire didn't happen overnight. It took months of back and forth, indirect negotiations, and a lot of pressure from multiple sides. Essentially, both Israel and Hamas were exhausted after 2 years of fighting. There was international mediation behind the scenes, discussions in neighboring countries, and intense negotiations to hammer out a deal that both sides could accept, even if reluctantly. Part of what pushed this forward was the sheer pressure on both sides. Israel carried out controversial strikes that could have derailed talks, and Hamas had its own red lines. What made a breakthrough possible was that both sides were forced to compromise, at least enough to stop the immediate violence. But, and this is important, this is just phase 1. The ceasefire is a start. The bigger, harder stuff is still ahead. Israel fully withdrawing, Hamas disarming, and Gaza establishing a sustainable governance structure. None of that is easy, and all of it has a high risk of going sideways. Let's talk about what life is like right now for ordinary people in Gaza. Imagine this. You've been displaced multiple times over 2 years. You finally get to return home, only to find a pile of rubble where your house once stood. That's the reality for thousands of people right now. People are sleeping in bombed-out buildings, under trees, on streets, wherever they can. Families are checking in on each other constantly, making sure everyone survived, making sure someone has shelter. The need is immediate. We're talking about tents, temporary shelters, clean water, food, medical care, everything. The bigger picture is just as grim. Gaza has been under siege for years. Even when reconstruction was supposed to happen after previous conflicts, it was slow, incomplete, and hampered by blockades. If rebuilding doesn't happen quickly and without obstruction, the humanitarian crisis will just continue. The ceasefire alone doesn't solve that. It just gives a little breathing room. Stopping the fighting is one thing. Actually building a lasting peace is a whole different ballgame. First, there's the issue of weapons. Hamas wants to keep what they call defensive weapons, light firearms and anti-tank missiles, to make sure Israel doesn't re-enter Gaza. Israel, of course, wants full disarmament. Finding a compromise is tricky, but there are models, like what happened in Northern Ireland, where weapons were stored under supervision until both sides fulfilled their obligations. Then there's governance. Right now, Gaza doesn't have a clear, sustainable political structure that represents the people. Palestinian self-determination has been ignored for decades, and without including the population in decisions about their own future, the cycle of violence can easily start again. On top of that, there's deep distrust on both sides. After so much killing and suffering, it's hard for either side to fully trust the other. That means any misstep, like delayed aid, an accident, or perceived betrayal, could derail the whole ceasefire. Here's another critical piece: aid and rebuilding. Right now, the north of Gaza is desperate. People need tents, water, food, medicine, and emergency housing. Trucks and aid workers need full, unrestricted access. If any of that gets blocked, even unintentionally, people could starve or die from preventable causes. And let's not forget infrastructure. Schools, hospitals, roads, water systems, they're all damaged. Rebuilding will take years, and it can't happen if the siege remains. This is why lifting restrictions and allowing full reconstruction is as important as stopping the immediate fighting. Returning hostages is a relatively straightforward step, but the next stage is more complicated. Who will hold Hamas's weapons? How do you ensure security while Israel withdraws? And what about Hamas fighters who refuse to give up their organization? These are not hypothetical questions, they're real risks. Hamas might still try to maintain influence in Gaza or elsewhere. Israel's political environment is divided, and there are factions that might push for renewed military action if they feel threatened. Despite all these challenges, there are reasons to be cautiously optimistic. For one, Hamas reportedly has very few offensive weapons left, so full disarmament isn't impossible. Both sides now have a shared incentive to avoid immediate conflict. Israel wants security, and Palestinians want survival and a chance to rebuild. International oversight has also been introduced in a way that hasn't happened before. Several countries are monitoring the ceasefire, which gives it a better chance of holding, at least in the short term. And the massive humanitarian needs create a kind of shared responsibility. Both sides, plus the international community, have a reason to keep the peace while aid flows in. Here's the reality: neither side has been able to solve this conflict militarily. Israel tried containment. It didn't work. Hamas tried attacks. That didn't work either. The only way forward is political. That means ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, returning hostages safely, rebuilding homes and infrastructure, establishing a political system that allows Palestinian self-determination, maintaining consistent international oversight to ensure compliance. This is a massive task, and it's going to take years. But if these steps can even start, it could finally move the region toward a solution that has eluded the world for decades. So, is this historic? Yes, it's the first meaningful pause in 2 years of intense violence. But is it a guaranteed path to peace? Absolutely not. The ceasefire is fragile. People are starving, homes are destroyed, political structures are missing, and distrust runs deep. For us watching from outside, it's important to see the human side of this story. Families are trying to survive amid unimaginable destruction, and leaders are trying to navigate a path toward peace that has been blocked for generations. This is a situation that requires ongoing attention, not just a headline. The next few weeks and months will be crucial. Will aid get through? Will Israel withdraw as promised? Will Gaza start to rebuild? And will both sides stick to the deal, even when things get messy? The bottom line: we can hope, we can watch, and we can support humanitarian efforts. But we also need to understand that real peace will take a lot more than a ceasefire. It will take time, trust, and commitment from everyone involved. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss updates on Gaza, Israel, and Middle East peace efforts. And drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the most important next step for this fragile ceasefire?